Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Arrowhead Addict podcast. I am Matt Verderame. He is Ben Heisler. We are here with another Thursday edition of Chiefs Best Bets with BetSided. Say that 5 times fast. This week, 2-1 Kansas City Chiefs, 2-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Looks like the game will be played down in Tampa Bay, Raymond James Stadium. Of course, that's good news. Hopefully, everybody down in Florida staying safe, doing just well. Look, let's get into it. Heisler, we got a lot to talk about because last week we both thought the Chiefs would win. The Chiefs did not win, mostly because it looked like the Chiefs bet the money line on the Colts. So it was not pleasant viewing if you're a KC fan. Conversely, the Buccaneers, they go and they lose their first game of the year. They lose to the Packers 14-12. No Mike Evans, no Chris Godwin, no Julio Jones. At least Evans will be back this week. It could be all three of them. So the Buccaneers getting healthy in time for the Chiefs. Your opening thoughts on Sunday Night Football here in Week 4?
Weird scenario as far as the betting markets are concerned. And I think it's because it's almost as if the books don't know what to do here, because these are scenarios traditionally where Chiefs in prime time are going to be a very public play, right? Like, Mahomes is typically going to light up the scoreboard. He's always done well in prime time in the past. Chiefs score a lot of points. But then you see the number come in with the Chiefs -2.5 after the loss to the Colts, where, the Chiefs were, a top pick for a lot of people in Survivor last week. They had teased the Chiefs number from -6.5 at one point with this game down to, just to pick them. Right now, the scenario for this game is nobody's really sure what to do. And the sports books, Verderame, basically are saying that. We work with a couple of different affiliates here over at BetSided, and Arrowhead Addict does as well. FanDuel right now has the Chiefs at +1. So the line has moved from Chiefs -2.5 all the way to Chiefs +1. So talking about a, basically a 2.5 to 3-point spread movement. Conversely, BetMGM has the Chiefs at -1. And the total has gone from 49.5 down to 45. There's just a whole lot of weird movement right now in this game. And I think it's because they're just trying to make sure that they can be on the right side, knowing that the game's going to be played in Tampa and coming off a game where the Chiefs really just beat themselves in every single way possible.
Yeah.
We had mentioned this to you before. FanDuel had a promotion last week where you could take Patrick Mahomes to go over 250 passing yards. We talked about this on the show. Gus Bradley's defense, single high safety, cover 3. He had destroyed it all throughout the course of his career, right? 17 touchdowns, 2 interceptions against Gus Bradley's defense in 7 games. And they should have won that game. They had multiple chances to put the game away, but you have the Chris Jones penalty, Travis Kelce drop in the end zone, and of course the Colts find a way to come back. I am looking at this game from the perspective of the Chiefs are coming in being looked down from that result last week. But in reality, it's very difficult to beat the Chiefs unless the Chiefs beat themselves. And that's entirely what happened last week.
All right. So I have what I hope is a nuanced take on this game, but I also think your take on the books is really interesting and it's accurate, because I'm going to tell you straight up. I was shocked the Chiefs were favored when the line came out for this game. I was shocked. The Chiefs offense has been middling for the last 2 weeks. They scored 20 points against the Chargers on offense.
Mm-hmm.
They scored 17 points against the Colts. Now, look, that's a little misleading from the standpoint that if they had a kicker, they would have at least gotten themselves to 23. But even for them, that is not high. That is not a lot, okay? Then you look at, they've played the Colts, who I think we can say stink, at least at this point. Now, the Cardinals, here's why this is weird for me. The Chargers game is whatever. Okay, you scored 20 points offensively. The Chargers have a really good defense, or at least did before everybody and their mother got hurt. The Cardinals, everybody's like, well, the Cardinals just suck. The Cardinals' defense has not stunk in the last 2 weeks. They've held down the Rams, and they held down the Raiders. The Cardinals' defense, the only team that lit up the Cardinals was Kansas City. But it's out of week 1. So you look at that and go, okay, well, what do you have? Now, here's the interesting thing about the Cardinals game. The Chiefs destroyed the Cardinals. And I think the biggest reason they did it was the Cardinals in that game just unapologetically blitzed over and over and over and over, and Mahomes killed them. Now, you go to the Bucs. Todd Bowles, now the head coach, also calls the plays on defense. Todd Bowles is one of the most aggressive D coordinators in the NFL who loves to play single high. That is what he did in the regular season game in 2020 between these two teams. And Tyreek Hill went for 300 yards, and the Chiefs destroyed them. Then they played in the Super Bowl, and he didn't blitz, and he played too high, and the Chiefs scored 9 points, and they couldn't block anybody. Now you go into this game, it's kind of like a combination of both games. The Chiefs have a better offensive line, but it's not been playing well.
Right.
They don't have Tyreek Hill. The Chiefs did not destroy single high safeties last week when they got them. So what do you do if you're Todd Bowles? Do you play more like you did in the Super Bowl, or do you play more like you did in the regular season game because you say, well, they don't have Tyreek Hill and the line is better, but it's still not great? I don't know the answer to that question, but I think all this averages out to me that this game should be a pick 'em, which is essentially what it is now.
Yes.
Kansas City is a better team, but they're not playing particularly well. The Bucs have been a mess offensively, but they're getting back a million guys, but their line still stinks. So I don't know where you go with this game, other than if I was a bookmaker, I'd go, look, pick the game, and I'd leave it at that.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're starting to see. A lot of the sharps were all over Tampa, for what it's worth, and I think they were waiting from at least the bookmaker side of trying to figure out when they wanted to move it. I think part of the reason too was something that you mentioned at the very beginning of the show. Where the hell was this game going to be played?
Yep.
That's now, I don't know if it's official yet, but all circumstances likely.
It's not, but it looks like it will be played in Tampa.
Right. So the game is now going to be played at Tampa. And I think because of that, when they initially hung this line, they kind of knew that it could be in Minnesota, right? Like all of a sudden, whatever sort of home field advantage Tampa Bay might have would go completely out the window. And some books have acted much more aggressively. I mentioned that FanDuel now has the Chiefs as underdogs in this game at +1. Now, again, you could say, well, okay, it's +1, -1. Maybe this ends up at a pick 'em by the time this thing is said and done. It very well could. And we'll talk about this in a little bit because of the recent change and now the update that it's going to be played in Tampa Bay. We're still waiting on a lot of these player props to come out. And for anybody who is a member of the Arrowhead Addict Discord channel, last couple of weeks we've been putting our picks from the show into the BetSided tab over at the Arrowhead Addict Discord spot. So make sure if you're not a member, you guys should absolutely go ahead and join that channel. We'll send you everything that we have regarding from our picks for today's show. And again, you might have to wait a little bit on some of the player props just because a lot of the markets aren't available yet. I do think it's worth mentioning, though, that these two quarterbacks thrive in this type of spot. And it's also leading me to wonder about the total as well. So the total right now is sitting at 45. It opened at 49.5.
Pretty low.
Obviously went way down. And this is, I can't remember a Chiefs total this low in a long time.
Yes.
Every week, Chiefs 51.5. Chiefs 53.5.
Always over 50.
Always. This is a very low total. Now, Bucs defense is very good. Yeah. And the Chiefs defense has made noticeable improvements.
The Chiefs defense has been really good.
Yes, like these are
the two best units in this team are the defense, or in this game are the defenses.
Yes,
which is insane considering who the quarterbacks are. But it's the truth.
Right. So let's talk about these quarterbacks for a second because these are two guys that have absolutely thrived in this spot over the course of their history. Granted, Brady's is a much longer history than Mahomes, but regardless, these guys. These are the spots that you want these quarterbacks to play in. So let's start with Brady. Tom Brady over the last 20 years. So the last time that Tom Brady lost a game after a loss as an underdog was when he was 25 or younger. You know, he's now 45. He's 10-0 against the spread over the last 20 years as an underdog after a loss. And shout out to Evan Abrams over at the Action Network for putting a lot of these stats together. And some of these just really stood out to me. Conversely, with Mahomes, he's 11-3 straight up after a loss, but 7-7 against the spread. Here's another crazy stat, Verderame. Pat Mahomes has never been an underdog coming off of a loss. So, like, there's no data point to suggest that right now, if you're looking at the FanDuel odds, well, what was Mahomes in this scenario? We don't know. We've never actually seen it before in his entire career, him being an underdog coming off of a loss over the course of his career. But that makes it even more difficult to try to figure out where you want to go with this game.
Look, I'm going to pull up some stats, and I don't want to be the guy who just reels off a bunch of stats. But the stats defensively for these two teams, like, look, everybody, when you talk about defense in this game, you talk about Tampa from a national perspective. The Buccaneers are 4th in yards per play against, 4.5. The Chiefs are 5th at 4.6.
It's remarkable.
Okay. Like, so you get to, then you go to pressure rate. The Chiefs are 2nd in the league in pressure rate. Tampa's 6th. You go to blitz rate. Tampa's 7th. Kansas City's 8th. You go to sacks. Tampa has 11. The Chiefs have 10. I mean, you go down the list, and it is just over and over. And the Chiefs actually have the better rushing defense, 3.6 yards per carry against 3.8. You go to third downs. The Bucs are 6th in the league at 30.2%. Kansas City's 10th at 32.6. Right? I mean, they're actually both susceptible in the red zone, which is kind of surprising.
Yeah.
Now, this is one stat the Bucs are amazing in, and it's the most important one. Points against on a per drive basis, the Bucs are number 1 in the league at 0.75. Kansas City's middle of the pack, 1.91. Not bad, not great. Now, part of that, to be fair, the Chiefs have given up some points in garbage time, which has skewed that quite a bit, where the Bucs really haven't. They haven't had as much garbage time. They haven't scored many points. So there's been a little bit of that. I mean, the Cardinals scored 14 points when nobody cared, and the Chargers got a late touchdown. But if you look at yards per drive, which, again, you've got to factor in a little bit of the nonsense there, but both of these teams are top 9 in the league. Like, the storyline is going to be Brady, Mahomes. That has to be, right? NBC is not going to have Nick Bolton and Vita Vey on the marquee. That's not the way it works in the world. But these are, by the way, Flapjack City, man, thank you so much for the super chat. Very, very nice of you. Appreciate you. Appreciate your support, as always. That is awesome, man. Beer's on you. Well, I'll take a beer. Look, I think this game is going to be a very defensive game. I don't even know that we're going to get to the total. I really don't, especially with how bad the weather's been and everything else. I don't know. Sunday it might clear out and be beautiful. I don't know. But I'll tell you, you look at the game, and I think there's this thought of, like, well, it's Brady and Mahomes. They're just going to light it up. These teams, other than the Chiefs in week 1, the offenses have been bad. Like, not even decent, bad. I know Brady's getting guys back. I have no idea what Julio Jones has left in the tank at this point. I don't even know that it matters he's coming back. Chris Godwin, if he plays, hasn't played since week 1 with a hamstring injury. I don't see him going out there and playing 70 snaps. So even if he plays, it's probably like a rotational basis. And the big matchup in this game I'm going to watch from the Chiefs defensive standpoint, the Buccaneers interior is not good. Stinney's out. Jensen's out. Chris Jones lining up over there.
Yeah.
But that's going to be – and one thing about Brady, as great as he is, you know where he is. Like, he's not going anywhere. So I'm curious in this game if Chris Jones, especially after what happened in Indianapolis, if he has a very good game.
Wouldn't surprise me. And he said everything. And again, you always take this with a grain of salt as to what guys say post-game, but he certainly held himself accountable.
He did.
Everybody on Kansas City last week held themselves accountable for a loss that should have never happened.
Correct.
They knew it. Coaching staff knew it. It doesn't matter who you ask, with the exception of maybe the Indianapolis Colts. They knew they shouldn't have lost that game, and they did everything to beat themselves over the course.
Let me ask you real quick, because you would know better than me.
Yeah.
If the Chiefs had won that game, let's say it's the exact same game, but the Jones penalty doesn't happen, they win the game. What do you think the line is for this game?
I think it probably opens up maybe a 3, maybe 3.5.
Okay.
I don't think it's that. I don't think it would have been that much. I think the number was where it was, not necessarily because the Chiefs lost to the Colts. I think bookmakers viewed it kind of as a fluky loss, right? Like the Sharps came in on the Colts because for a wide variety of reasons. Kansas City going on the road, Colts first home opener, basically they hadn't played to their level of what a lot of the sharps and a lot of the books thought they would be, but they were still, at one point 7.5 point road favorites, and then the line adjusted itself and went down to 5.5. So I think even if Kansas City would have pulled out a close win, I don't think, unless people are saying, oh, well, the Chiefs are 3-0, Bucs are
right. I just wonder if more like public money would have driven it up, just based on.
Not early in the week.
Okay.
Not early in the week, and that's a fair point. Like I've learned this over the course of being in this role and spending more time. So a lot of times we're thinking like, oh, well, a lot of this early line movement on Sundays is because all the professionals are getting in on the lines early. To a certain extent, that's true. But a lot of these different books don't really open things up until Monday, Tuesday in the week. Like the lines are open, but they're capped. So if you're a guy that's betting, if you're a professional betting 50,000, 100,000 plus per game,
you're waiting till later in the week.
You're waiting till later in the week. You might take a position. Let's say you really like a number. But a lot of times those guys will wait, because if all of a sudden the cap is at $1,000 and you come in and the books know who you are, then they're going to immediately move the line. And kind of screws everybody else. There's almost like a courtesy involved, which I found to be fascinating, but it makes total sense. Like you wait to see how a lot of this will shake up, and then that's when the lines start to move. So I don't think necessarily that if the Chiefs came in at 3-0, it would drastically change where this line opened up. I think where it was, based on the fact that the Bucs were still dealing with a bunch of injuries, the fact that the Chiefs beat themselves, it made sense that they were going to open as short favorites on the road. But now, with the line moving as much as it did, knowing that Tampa's getting a bunch of these guys back, maybe you make the argument too that it's too much of a move. But it's also reflective of a lot of sharp bettors this year thinking that there's some issues with the Chiefs. Like, I don't think it's necessarily reflective of like Bieniemy and Mahomes having a disagreement at the end of the first half, but I do think that they look at Kansas City's offense right now as a work in progress.
Which it is.
Maybe that changes.
Right. I mean, look, I don't know where you fall in this game. I put out my picks this morning. Chiefs fans won't love me for this, but I think Tampa wins by a field goal. My premise on this game is this. I don't know what the hell is going to happen in this game. Like, I usually have a feel one way or the other. Like, it doesn't mean I'm always right. I thought the Chiefs were going to kill the Colts, and they should have, but they didn't. I feel like this game sets up. Like, I have heard enough throughout the week of like, oh, is Brady? Is he finally done? Is this it? Is this it? And it's like that always sets up for Brady to throw for 400 yards. Like every time that happens, and it's like the stars are aligning for this game for them. Everybody's coming back. Shaquille Barrett's been talking crap all week long about how they're going to smoke the Chiefs offensive line. The Chiefs offensive line gives you no reason to think that's not going to be the case. I mean, all these things, it just adds up to Brady just going nuts down the field with Evans and Godwin. Now, that said, there's also the other quarterback in this game who's like, yeah, well, I'm getting crapped on, and nobody's thinking about me because everybody's talking about Tua and Jalen Hurts and Lamar and Josh Allen, and we didn't play well, and I didn't play particularly well. And the hell if I'm going to lose 2 games in a row, and we're going to go down there, we're going to win this game, and God knows they should have some revenge on their mind after the Super Bowl a year and a half ago. So you think all that factors in. It's a very weird game.
Yeah.
Like, I almost feel it's going to come down to, like, on the margins. Like, a turnover, like somebody fumbling the ball. And, maybe somebody misses a kick. And, like, stuff like that. If it feels – I would be very surprised if either one of these teams blows out the other one. I just don't see that happening. I think it's a defensive game. I think both quarterbacks have their moments. I could be wrong. I could see Spagnuolo blitzing Brady in this game, which you'd never do, and seeing if he can heat him up a little bit because they can't block, and the Chiefs' blitzes have actually been really effective. But I'll tell you, my biggest concern in this game for the Chiefs, and KL368, who he picks Tampa in 28-17, I won't go that far, but he says, I don't think Andy makes an adjustment yet. And I got to tell you, that is my biggest concern from the Chiefs' perspective in this game. I feel like they got totally outcoached last game. I feel like against the Chargers, they were outcoached to begin. I thought they did it just as the game went on. They made adjustments the second half. I went back and watched that film against the Colts, and it is just infuriating. Like there are moments in that game. You're like, what was the thought process on this play call? And to be fair, there were some plays with Mahomes where you're like, what is the thought process here? Just throw it to the guy who's wide open for 12 yards underneath on 2nd and 10. Like,
right. Don't overcomplicate it just because you can.
And I feel like with the Chiefs, they don't want to accept who they are yet, which is a different team. It's a West Coast style team, I think. The Buccaneers, one thing I know about Brady, he will play them exactly how he should play them. If he sees it throw underneath, he'll take it. If he sees an intermediate route, he'll throw it. If he's got a deep shot, he'll take it. Like that I think is the big difference in the game. But again, I think I said earlier, I think it should be a pick 'em. I said that for a reason. I think it's a very much flip a coin type of game.
Yeah. I think the play makes sense, and you're on the side of the sharps this week. And just because I like you, Verderame, and it also helps our record look good. I'll give you the side of the Bucs +1 here because it's still available, right? Like depends on what book you're looking at. You can either get the Bucs at -1 or you can get them at +1. Like there's a 2-point swing between BetMGM and FanDuel. Like I don't know. Like a lot of times, like people are trying to like find a way to middle the game. Like you could, if you want to try and take both teams at +1 or try and find a guaranteed profit on the money line. I suppose you can. I don't know if I'm necessarily going to go that route. I think I want to see where the rest of this line moves and maybe jump on board there. But the way that I'm playing it is I'm with you. I think it's close. I'm leaning on the Bucs, and because of that, I'm going to throw them into a teaser. Now, if you read Verderame's column on Monday, knows that I gave out a teaser play there that I like between the Chargers and the Lions. There's another teaser that I would go here, and it's a team that I haven't teased yet because, frankly, I don't love them. But I do know that they're better than the team that they're playing this week, and that's the Denver Broncos. So I'm going to take the Broncos, who are somehow 2.5-point dogs on the road against a terrible Raiders team.
I'm taking the Raiders to win and cover.
Are you really?
Yeah, I really.
Okay. Well, they might win and cover. Broncos defense has looked very good.
It has. Yes, it has.
So I'll take the Broncos, move them from +2.5 to +8.5.
I like that. Yeah,
I think they can cover the +8.5.
Yes.
Against the Raiders, and I'll go ahead and tease it with Tampa, move them from +1 to +7. So as long as the Bucs lose the game by a touchdown or less, or win the game outright, then you have Denver at least try to find a way to stay involved with a Raiders team that I think is going to make some bad plays down the stretch. Yeah, go from +2.5 to +8.5. That's going to be my best bet for this week. Because the total is still weird. The weather, you mentioned the weather too. Yes. Weather report looks beautiful in Tampa on Sunday night.
It tends to happen after these big storms. It
74 degrees, clear skies. It'll be humid. It'll be humidity levels between 65 and 75% during game time. Wind is not going to be much of a factor, anywhere between 5 and 7 miles per hour. Like a beautiful night to watch a football game, which makes me want to get on the over too. But think of everything we've discussed.
I wouldn't touch it.
Right? There's too much weird shit going on in this game for me to look at either the spread, either the money lines, and either the totals. If I can play around with it, I will. And that's why I'm going to go ahead and do a little late afternoon Sunday night football teaser as far as my best bet is concerned.
What Reddy Whip just said, which you have up on the screen now, for people listening, he wrote, that said the Chiefs were hair off on multiple plays last week. It totally changes the narrative, but we'll see. And that's why this game's a coin flip in my mind.
Yeah.
The Chiefs could have blown the Colts out if like 8 things go an inch differently. Like it was a very, very weird game.
Right. It's football too, though.
Of course. But I guess maybe I'm not wording it the right way. What I'm driving at is I didn't watch that game and feel like, oh, the Chiefs just got beat. Like it was a game where you were like, oh my God, like how could you possibly make this? Because it wasn't like they got beat by inches in a way where you were like, well, the Colts just really, they beat them to the breaks. It was more like, how could the Chiefs possibly screw up these plays this badly? Like they should have won this game by 20 points. I mean, look, I am by nature a pessimist with the Chiefs. I grew up in an era where they made you a pessimist. But throughout that entire game, I never thought they were going to lose. I was like, there's no way they're losing to this team. Like at some point, somebody's just going to make a play, and like that's it.
It'll be a little too close for comfort,
Right, exactly. And we'll talk about how they got to get better.
And ask, God, what's his name? The kicker that they cut.
Amendola.
Amendola. You might have to ask Amendola to make. I think I tweeted out. I was like, if Mahomes gets the ball back with whatever it was, 36 seconds left, and they get to extra point distance,
right?
Do you let him try to tie the game?
I know it was insane. But but that's the one thing about this that more than anything makes me just go, I don't know what the hell is going to happen. And I just, it's one of these games. I could see the Chiefs correcting those things and scoring and going nuts and scoring like 30 points, and everybody's like, oh my God, they put 30 on Tampa and blah, 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 blah. And the Chiefs get pressure on Brady all night.
Yeah.
I could also see it being a game where the Chiefs, and they have a history of this under Andy sometimes, where every advantage you think they have in the game, they don't have all of a sudden. And like they can't touch Brady, and Mahomes is under pressure all night. I think it's going to be a very, very interesting game. I think it's going to come down to the margins. I think it's a 50-50. I will say this, though, and I'm going to throw a complete curveball at you, Heisler, but I've been thinking about this all week, and I saved it for this show. I don't even know what the odds are right now in the Chiefs winning the division. I really don't. You probably know. If you don't, that's fine. Whatever they are right now, I'd wait till after this game, because even if they lose, and I don't care what Denver does, it doesn't matter to me, I would immediately take the Chiefs to win the division. Because let me tell you something. The three coaches in this division outside of Andy Reid, God, do they stink. Okay? They stink. All of them. The Chargers are beat up to hell. Another hot take, I think Denver's the worst team in the division. I know the Raiders are 0-3. Denver can't score a point. Denver has barely beaten Houston, and the Niners, who also looked like they took the money line on their opponent last week. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo, oh my God, can you hit somebody who's even remotely open?
I was beyond pissed at that game.
It was unbelievable.
It was the end of a 14 parlay for me. I just had the 49ers money line, and it was the first time. It's the first time since 2016 that a team that had punted 10 times found a way to win the game. I was on my phone like this the entire time, hitting refresh, so I could try to cash out that bet. And the book that I was using, I won't reveal its name. It's fortunately it's not one that we are working with. Did not allow me to cash out. Just kidding. Come on. It was like the Jim Carrey typing thing. Just like, come on, let's go. No. I just had to watch that for 3+ hours of a garbage football game, and then watch my bet just blow up in smithereens.
And I see Hunt says Denver's D is legit. Though, listen, I'm with you to an extent. Can they play anybody with an offense first before I go that far? They've played Seattle and Houston, and the Niners, who have talent, but also have no quarterback and just could not do. I mean, how many times in that game was a guy in the Niners wide open and Garoppolo just could not get him the football? Or he'd get him the ball, but it was like not in rhythm, so the guy could only catch the ball for 10 yards instead of running for the 30 that were in front of him. Like I watched Denver. I've watched every snap for the first 3 weeks. Nothing about Denver impresses me, save for the pass rush. Nothing. And Surtain is excellent. I do agree with that. Surtain's awesome.
And really quickly, but by the way, just to answer your question about the Chiefs in the division.
Yep.
I don't know if it's necessarily going to change that much. Like they're minus 130 at FanDuel right now.
Who's next? Is it Denver or is it the Chargers?
It's Denver.
Oh my God. Take the Chiefs immediately. Like in that division. Denver. Why? Has anyone watched Denver?
It's
they're
minus
brutal.
It's minus 130, and even if they lose to the Bucs, unless they get blown out, what the line might move to maybe even money, minus 110.
What is Denver in the division right now? Because Chiefs minus 130. What's Denver?
Plus 270.
So the line's actually, it's a pretty big gulf between the Chiefs now and the rest.
Yeah.
Because early in the year it was very tight. All those teams are so tight in there.
I honestly, I still kind of thought Kansas City would be like minus 160, minus 170 based off of that gap.
Oh my God!
But that's free money.
And run like the wind. I know if they lose, everybody's going to be skies falling mode. And I was as pissed as I was after the Colts. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm not going to say I'm not going to care if they lose, because obviously I want them to win. they'll be fine. Even if they go into a bye like 4-3 or something, look at their schedule after the bye week.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of teams are going to smoke by and large. Okay. And nobody's running away in the AFC. Nobody. I mean, the only team with a better record than them is Miami. Well, I respect the Dolphins. I don't think Miami's going to run away and hide here. So if I'm somebody who likes to bet and I'm looking for something to play, I would take the Chiefs to win the division. McDaniels can't coach his way out of a paper bag. The Chargers have everybody and their mother hurt, and you got Staley playing Herbert with cracked ribs at 38-10, and you've got Denver, who I'm not sure Nathaniel Hackett could outcoach a high school kid in a Madden game. So unless the Chiefs get hurt, you just start printing off the banner right now.
All right, here's what I'm going to do for you, because I just checked BetMGM.
Yep.
Chiefs are basically even money to win that division right now.
Oh my God.
So I'm gonna tweet that out. I'm gonna tag you in it.
Oh, God.
If you haven't taken advantage of all of Arrowhead Addict's opportunities to get on board with BetMGM, please go ahead and do so, and then use whatever free money you get. Chiefs minus 105 to win the division.
Oh my God!
Don't think twice about it.
I mean, here's my question. Anybody who would argue that, who are you taking to beat them out? The Raiders are 0-3. Mr. Unlimited looks unbelievably limited at the moment, and the Chargers, I actually think are still the biggest threat. But my God, they have nobody left. Everybody in the team's hurt.
Yeah.
So I mean, and the Chiefs already have beaten them. So I'm looking at that thing and going, what do the Chiefs have to get to win-wise to win this division? 11 wins, and there's no way anybody's beating them out? I mean, Kansas City's getting to 11 wins. I don't care. Unless Mahomes goes down here, they're getting to 11, 12 wins, and they might even get to 13. To me, that is the easiest bet in the world as long as they're healthy. They are clearly the best team in the AFC West.
I'm not thinking twice about it. Verderame, I hate to do this to you, but I'm supposed to be on a radio station in St. Louis, so I have to run. Go whatever. It doesn't matter what we were giving out for Chiefs winners this week. Minus 105, win the division.
That's the winner.
That's your best bet of the week.
All right, Heisler, go to the radio. I'll close it out. Thank you, sir. All right. Look, Heisler's got radio to do. He's big time in me. That's okay. I appreciate it. Good for him. They should have him on the radio. Does a damn good job. By the way, I want to thank everybody for being here in the chat. Jeremy, Hunt, Ready Whip. You guys are mainstays always here. KL368, Flapjack City with the huge super chat earlier. Really appreciate you, man. That is awesome. That is great. Helps us to do better work and to do better stuff. So really do appreciate you for that. Look, guys, I'll close with this. I'll just give a few quick thoughts, and then we can wrap it, okay? I don't know if the Chiefs are going to win this game or not. I actually picked Tampa Bay. It's first time I picked the Chiefs to lose this week, and it's not because they lost to the Colts last week. It really isn't. It's more because I think Tampa's incredibly undervalued right now. All these people talking about the Brady's done, they can't score a point. Look, they have Evans and Julio Jones and Chris Godwin, and they're all coming back this week. Now, I've had people say to me, because I've shared that opinion a little bit on Twitter. I've had people say, well, what about week 1 against Dallas? Okay, I understand that. Godwin left early in the game. Okay. And the Bucs moved the ball up and down the field in that game. They just settled for some field goals. Now, field goals are field goals. Okay, Micah Parsons blew it up in that game. He was great. He had some sacks. I think the Chiefs defense is really good. I do. I don't think they're a fluke. I don't think they're going anywhere. I think the defense is really good. And if they had Gay and McDuffie in this game, and I think McDuffie's the bigger loss here, to be honest. I think the Chiefs will be okay without Gay in this game. Bucs don't have great backs and tight ends. I think McDuffie's the bigger loss because now you're going to have to keep Fenton in on the outside. And look, I don't think Rashad Fenton deserves a lot of the crap that he gets. I think he's a pretty decent corner. But you're putting him on the outside against Zach Root, man. That's an issue. Look, they like to put Godwin in the slot. I think Snead can handle Godwin. I do. I mean, Godwin's a very good player. He'll get some catches and receptions and all that. But and receiving yards, I meant to say. But I think Snead will be okay there. I actually think Watson, against Evans size-wise, now look, it's a rookie 7th-round pick, but I think size-wise, it's not a terrible matchup. We'll see if Fenton and Julio Jones, can Fenton do what he needs to do in that game just to manage it, and do they rotate coverage and help out? I think the Chiefs have a real chance to win the game. I think it's about 50-50. I think, again, the keys in this game for me for the Chiefs, and look, we're going to be back on the Arrowhead Addict podcast at 4:00 Central. I'll be here with Patrick Allen, so I don't want to give away too much, but I will tease it with this. The Chiefs' game plan has to be better in this game. When I went back and watched that Colts game, look, the Colts gave the Chiefs a couple of different looks. They gave them some quarters. They gave them a little bit of 2-man coverage, okay? But they played a lot of their single high, cover 3 looks. They did not play anything exotic. They didn't do anything that was wildly out of the norm. It wasn't as though they did things that you'd say, well, you know what, tip your cap. The Chiefs just couldn't have been prepared for that. That's not what happened. The Chiefs just failed to execute. Mahomes, in his presser on Wednesday, mentioned, yeah, it felt like every failed play, somebody ran the wrong route. Somebody wasn't in the right spot. That can't happen. But to me, if that's happening over and over and over, that's not a player issue. That's a coaching issue. That's an execution issue, sure. Like the players have to be held accountable. But when that's happening constantly with different players, that's a coaching point. Maybe it's a little bit too aggressive of a game plan. Maybe you need to pare it down a little bit, have fewer plays in there. Maybe you need to simplify things. Look, the Chiefs defensively have simplified things. Look how they're playing. I'm a big believer. Look, if I go to a restaurant, I would rather go to a place that has 10 items on the menu, but they're excellent at making all those items, than go to the fucking Cheesecake Factory and have 300 items and I could pick any one of them. And yeah, they're going to be all right, but none of them are great. None of them are excellent. None of them are memorable. I really believe with the Chiefs, you need to pick a few items off of your offensive menu and say, we're great at these. And we're going to kill you with these. It needs to be more upscale and not Cheesecake Factory Chiefs. Okay. That is the problem, in my opinion. And when you call those plays, okay, then it becomes about, hey, look, Mahomes has to execute it the way the play is supposed to be executed. Okay, which, look, I would take him over any quarterback in the league, but there are times with him, if there's one issue, he plays a little bit of hero ball. Like, just take the profit. I think if they do that, they'll win the game. I just don't have confidence that they'll do it. But if they do it, I think they win. Because I think they're the more talented football team. I really do. Especially with all the injuries to Tampa and everything else. But to me, that is the biggest problem with this team right now, is they don't hone in enough on what they're great at, because they're so worried about playing out 80 different plays. Just take the profit. It'll be fine. I just don't know if they're going to do it, which is why I took Tampa in this game. All right. Thank you for everybody watching and listening. Appreciate you so much. Like I just said, we'll be back on 4 o'clock. I'll be here with Patrick Allen. We'll talk all things Chiefs Bucs from a non-betting perspective. We'll break down the whole game. Okay. And then after that, look, on Sunday, we got a full slate, boys and girls. So I'll be on the Stack in the Box podcast, which, by the way, if you don't subscribe to, please do it. We just crossed over 5,000 subscribers this morning. It's a very exciting moment for us. I'll be on from 11 to 12 Central on Sunday morning with Ian McMillan. We'll break it down every game. We'll go rapid fire all the way until kick. And then a big, big slate for the Arrowhead Addict podcast on Sunday. We have pregame show, halftime show, postgame show. We're going to cover it all. Wall-to-wall Chiefs Bucs coverage. Okay, prime time deserves prime time coverage. We'll be here for all that and more. In the meantime, for Ben Heisler, I am Matt Verderame. This has been Chiefs Best Bets with BetSided. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again real soon.